Thank you, Mr. Hogan. At this time, I'd like to call the Castle County Planning Board meeting to order for Tuesday, August 23rd, 2022. Have the approval of the agenda. Looks like it's a pretty light agenda today, and everyone had a chance to review. Hearing no discussion, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as is. Motion to approve. Motion by Mr. Harris. Approve the agenda. All those in favor, please let me know by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Next, we have the approval of the July 26, 2022 meeting minutes. I'd like to thank Amy for preparing those minutes for us. Everyone had a chance to review. Hearing no discussion, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Thompson. To approve the minutes. All those in favor, please let me know by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Public comments. Mr. Hogan, do we have any public comments today?
No, sir. No public comments.
So we'll move on to unfinished business, the Watershed Review Board pending appeals. Mr. Hogan, I think we have an update from our planning board attorney, Mr. Hornet.
Sure.
If you wouldn't mind maybe giving us an update on the status.
Yeah, absolutely. I had planned for that for the planning department updates, and I'm happy to do it now. So in a nutshell, it looks like the matter that was before the Superior Court has been, I guess you may say, resolved. One of the parties withdrew their motion, withdrew their complaint. I'm not sure the proper legal term to use, but by withdrawing it from Superior Court, now really the only issues that are left are the appeals, which are for the Watershed Review Board to hear. In the email correspondence that we got, looks like they want to take a little time to prepare, which means that they're looking at possibly October to have the watershed appeals actually come before this board.
All right, with that being said, Mr. Hogan, I wonder if it might be a good idea to have Mr. Hornick meet with us one more time, maybe to prepare the board, give us an idea of the schedule and what to expect.
Sure.
I wonder if he could maybe attend remotely or in person at the next meeting.
Yeah, you mean reach out to him for September?
I think that would be wise.
Yeah.
So we have a motion before us. We've been through this before, so we need to move the Watershed Review Board hearing to the next regular scheduled planning board meeting. And I'll go ahead and read the motion. The motion reads as follows. I move to adopt resolution from July 26, 2022 planning board meeting as written with the following amendment. Now therefore be it resolved by the Castle County Watershed Review Board as follows. Watershed Review Board hearing with respect to the Sunrock appeals now scheduled to begin on August 23rd, 2022 shall be and hereby is continued until the next Watershed Review Board meeting scheduled for 1 p.m. Tuesday, September 27th, 2022. So that is the motion. Ask for a second. With no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please let me know by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Next, under new business, county commission joint meeting schedule. Chair recognizes Mr. Hope.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the last county commission meeting, which I believe was on the 14th or the 15th, I presented to the county commissioners the planning board's recommendations for changes to the comprehensive plan. There was a little bit of discussion. Commissioner Oshar could probably elaborate on that a little bit as well. But in a nutshell, they basically took the planning board up on the recommendation of having a joint meeting to discuss, I guess, possible future changes to the comprehensive plan. They didn't really specify a time or a date, but the word that I received was to shoot for a morning work session during the work week, during a regular work day, preferably maybe 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, you know, somewhere like in this room or in Coast Square, just kind of a joint general work session with the planning board. So this discussion is just to kind of get y'all's feel for when you may be available and when you might want to proceed with that joint work session with the commissioners.
Mr. Oakley, I think we received some input from you. If you'd like to
Sure.
address the board.
Yes, I was thinking about this and I was, yeah, I know we have quite a few commissioners who are going to change with the new election. So my thoughts were to, you know, let this kind of take normal course with, you know, next year's cycle. And so leading up to next year, we could have a kickoff meeting with the new board of commissioners, you know, in the January timeframe after they're instated. Then at that point, you know, we could kick off our normal annual review in January. There was some really good input in that original document with the community meetings. I think they had a series of 3 different meetings held throughout the county. You know, good input from that in the comprehensive plan. I think going into a meeting with the commissioners, that would be good input to have those community meetings. So if we could redo those types of meetings, gather that input, and then take that in to a meeting with the commissioners, and then we could review that, and then also the you know, go through the section that has the goals and objectives and see what the commissioners' thoughts are on that piece. But so, you know, the commissioners may want to have a meeting, you know, sooner versus later, but my thoughts would just be to see if they're willing to hold off until the next round of commissioners are installed. I did have a couple of questions. I mean, we can open it up for this discussion at that point. Then I had a few questions, just general questions about some of the other updates that we can make and how we feel about doing that.
Well, when I saw your email, I thought it was a good idea, especially now since considering it looks like the Watershed appeals process is back on the table and back in front of us. And we'll have approximately 60 appellants, Mr. Hogan.
I think so. I think it's in the 50s. Yeah.
I saw the email from Mr. Warnick. He anticipates, I know he said week-long process, but certainly multiple hearings.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, there's a lot to deal with, and you know, I suppose it depends on if the attorneys want to address each appellant independently or address them jointly, but that's certainly, you know, for them to decide how they want to do that.
And so that will take up, of course, the October meeting and attorneys planning for that day, and we'll have to prepare for that as well, I assume. So that's a good idea. It's going to take those measures. Any other discussion or thoughts on the subject? Mr. Oak, you had a few questions.
Yeah, so just as we prepare for the next cycle, if we, that entire section 2, maybe Matthew knows better than Tony, but that entire section 2 where it has all the county demographics and trends, and we updated a few things that you could pull from available census data, but who generated that information? Was that the Piedmont Triad group
Yeah.
that did that?
As far as I understand, that was the Piedmont Triad Regional Council.
Okay. So maybe one thing that could be investigated is, since we have fairly recent census data, could they revamp that entire section? If they could, they could go ahead and get started on that, and then we could roll that in next year. That would be a pretty significant update to have, and that would be valuable, I think, for the commissioners as they, preview going into this cycle as well. So I guess that would be one question, and I don't know if there's funding, do we have to fund those updates, or does the county have to fund that? I just
Yeah,
have no idea.
Yeah, I think that would be, I guess you might classify it as kind of a substantial expenditure to do that. I don't recall. I want to say at the beginning of this process, I did reach out to the Piedmont Triad Regional Council and ask them about kind of a ballpark cost estimate on a wholesale rewrite of the comprehensive plan. And it was quite a bit. If I recall correctly, when the commissioners debated this back in the February and March timeframe, they did, correct, if I'm incorrect here, they talked about wanting to make these types of minor modifications that could be handled on the county level. The importation of top level census data, reorganization of goals and priorities, things of that nature that were easy, relatively small fixes as opposed to a whole scale overhaul. It may be the case if the board wanted to present that as an option to the commissioners to engage Piedmont Triad Regional Council to do an entire new revamp, maybe they would be open to allocating that money. But based on the debate that I remember, their goal was just kind of small fixes.
Yeah, I think, my primary
Is that how you
interest
recall
would,
it as well?
yeah, my primary interest would just be that section 2. I don't know if that would be less of an effort or not, but it's a lot of information in that section 2.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that would be one thing to consider. And then for the community meetings, is there funding that would need to be allocated for that, or is it relatively just people's time that are
That's
already on the clock?
That's a great question. I can't imagine, if I recall correctly, they met at the public elementary schools and different public locations throughout the county. I can't imagine, maybe the cost of refreshments or putting together a presentation or something would be what you're looking at there. I can't imagine that would be a substantial cost. But I don't make those decisions.
Okay. Well, I guess those were the things that I thought of that we would need to consider if there was any kind of funding that needed to be approved to do this type of thing.
Sure.
If the county input, if nothing else, you probably have costs associated with public side.
Right. Yeah.
That would have to be done.
Right.
Printing
Printing costs and Facebook ads, stuff like that. Yeah.
So I guess my recommendation would be that type of a schedule, and then go back to propose that to the commissioners, and then see if they have any interest in updating section 2. If it is, let's get an estimate to do that, and then make sure if they are in agreement that they want a revised community input, then we would need funding to do the public side.
Okay, so the recommendation would be to postpone the joint meeting until the new board is set. I guess gauge their interest as to what changes need to be made. Any objections to that? Mr. Hogan, we can make a formal motion or,
Yeah, it's whatever the board decides. I mean, I just feel like I should reiterate the kind of the directive I got was to shoot for a work day session, early morning work session relatively soon. The board can decide whatever you want to do. I just feel the need to reiterate that.
yeah, and I think in light of, you know, the Watershed Review Board appeals coming back on the table, I think we're really going to be with that, but, you know, whatever the board decides is fine. I think we'll start with next week. Okay, Mr. Oakley, would you mind just making a motion and we'll just take a vote on it? That's okay.
Okay, so. Yes, the motion would be to propose the timeline that was outlined in the email. I'll restate that since I don't think we're going to change anything. So that would be the timeline for the proposed meeting, along with a request to get an estimate to update section 2 if the county would approve funding for that. And then a request for funding. Also ask the commissioners if they would like community input, a revised section of community input, which was that's section 3. And then funding to publicize that.
Okay, and then to postpone the joint meeting until after the new board. That's the motion for the board. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor, let me know by saying aye. Aye. Those like sign. Motion carries. All right, moving on to planning department updates. Mr. Hogan, broadband and cell site.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got a couple of things to share with you. The first is a photo of, this is the cell tower that was approved last summer and is currently being constructed on Highway 158 West between Bethesda Church Road and the Casville intersection. And as you can see, the new feature there is the Verizon wireless antenna on the top. So I actually spoke with Doug Barker, who was, if you recall, was the developer on this tower. Spoke with him this morning. And basically it's ready to go, except they're still having a little bit of a challenge of getting a line of fiber high-speed internet to the tower. And that's very common in our area. It's easy to build, it's easy to get the antenna in, set it on top, but the actual line of internet to connect the thing and turn it on can be a challenge. And so it will cost them more, just in sheer dollars, it's going to cost them more than it would in another location. But as you can see, the fence there is primarily finished, the structure is finished, the tower is on top, and then there's space at the top to accommodate 2 more antenna. If I didn't mention it already, that is a Verizon wireless tower. And so he didn't give me a firm timeline, but that of all the towers in the county that have been approved by this board and are under construction, that'll be the next one to be turned on.
You got to wait for the internet.
Correct. Yep. All right, let me.
Prospect Hill.
No update on Prospect Hill that he gave me. That one is basically the structure is built, but there are no towers on it. I drove by there on Friday, if I recall correctly, and there was no tower atop there. And I wanted to answer another kind of a lingering question that, or I guess just read his email that answers a lingering question that Mr. Oakley's had for some time, and some other citizens have actually asked me as well, with regards to 5G capabilities on the towers. So I asked him if the new towers built would have 5G capabilities, and I kind of expected a yes or no answer, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. So let me read his response to you. He says, every tower has the capability for 5G. However, we're running into some weird regulatory issues with the FAA, which is the Federal Aviation Administration. Due to their concerns over 5G close to airports, potentially causing issues with altimeters. Right now, the FAA won't review anything with 5G frequencies that are included. So what they're having to do is file an FAA request with everything on the tower except the 5G capability. Then they get their approval, and then after they build the tower, they can refile for a 5G frequency, and then they just wait until they work out the airport details to get approval and put 5G capability on the tower. So he says that's not true for every site, but it typically depends on if a tower is over 199 feet. And that's kind of the protocol right now. He built one recently in Wilson County that was 199 feet, and because there weren't any airport issues, it's got 5G from day one. 5G from day one. So until then, other carriers will be 3 or 4G until they can kind of go back and get approval from FAA, and then they'll basically kind of flip a switch and turn it into 5G. He says he'll check on the West Caswell, the Prospect Hill sites for 5G capabilities and then get back to me. And that was an email from just a couple of days ago. So basically, long story short is yes, they'll have 5G capabilities, but it's kind of a regulatory oversight clearance thing with the FAA.
I think I heard that there was some concern about interference with radar, airports and stuff,
Yeah.
5G.
Okay. So that's all I got on cell towers, which was actually second on my list. I guess I should have started with broadband. Do you have any updates on broadband? Commissioner Roseberg?
I don't know, they're all over the place.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of work trucks out and a lot of buried cable and stuff like that, but.
In the Anderson area, lots of people are signing up.
Oh, yeah, didn't you want to ask about his internet?
Yeah,
Everything's working good.
You got Comcast, or you got Charter now, and
Yeah.
it's lightning fast and everything you hoped for. Yeah, that's great.
it's TV and internet.
I just ordered the internet, but I'm streaming TV. But yeah, there's a lot of people in the area have already signed up. So.
That's great. It's fantastic.
Is yours in the ground or?
They brought it in on the power pole where the transformer is, and then underground.
Is it inside the house, it's wireless, or do they connect to every TV? By wire?
So what you do inside the house, right? They run a fiber box on you, install it on your house, and they'll run fiber to wherever your router's going to be. So they do run fiber inside of your house, and then from there,
It's wireless router.
you can either go, well, they don't give you the wireless router, but if you already have one, you can just connect, basically a RJ45 connector to your wireless, or you can connect it directly to your computer if you want to use hardwire. So they don't give you for free the wireless router. Purchase that or rent from them.
How much more than that?
I think that's what it's got to be.
You got the platinum package.
Next year, if you're gonna, next year, I'm sure it does.
Yeah, I'm sure.
All right, so that's all I've got on broadband and cell towers, and I've got at least one more item. So we covered the pending watershed appeals, which looked like they're set for the October meeting. The only other thing I want to make note of is you probably saw in the news recently that the governor's 888-day executive order and state of emergency on COVID had finally expired. As a result, a lot of the remote meeting protections that went along with that have now gone away. So you guys as a planning board are in a little bit of a gray area. I can tell you with 100% certainty that elected boards no longer have the freedom to meet remotely. So if you're a county commission, if you're a town council, you must meet and conduct business in person. But I did read a blog from the UNC School of Government that seems to indicate there's a little bit of a gray area and some wiggle room for appointed boards like planning board or board of adjustment or whatever. So what I plan to do is try to have a conversation with our county attorney and have him take a look at the same writing from the UNC School of Government and see if you guys will still have the flexibility in the future to have remote participation moving forward. Because if I don't know the last time you looked at the bylaws for the planning board, but it does say that a meeting can be conducted in person or by electronic means. So because your bylaws allow for electronic means, if there's no restriction on the state level, then ideally we're okay. But it's just something I want to get the county attorney to weigh in.
Thank you, Mr. Hubbard. Yeah. Also thinking, getting back to the comprehensive plan review and the joint meeting. You know, if the commissioners, if you could convey to the commissioners, if they would like myself as chairman or vice chair of Oakley to attend one of their meetings to try to serve as a conduit to address concerns about the plan. I know you mentioned Commissioner Bassengill was concerned about doing a new traffic study because of the casino. And we certainly want to keep an open dialogue. So
Sure.
if you could convey that,
Yeah.
we certainly want to stay in communication.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all I got for updates.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hogan. That being said, that appears to be all the business for today, so thank everyone for showing up and good, just make a motion to adjourn. Make a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn by Mr. Harris, all those in favor? Those opposed, like sign. Those adjourned.
So,